Welcome back to the Darkest Theory podcast. I'm your host, ScrapBrain. Settle's taking this week off, so I'm going to go ahead and fly this one solo. If you've seen any of our previous episodes, you're used to a certain level of editing and layout for the podcast, and Settle usually handles all of that. So I'm going to do my best. I hope that you'll bear with me a little bit, but he's much better and more experienced with it than I am, so we're just going to do what we can and move on from there. So for this week, since I'm here, I thought I would go ahead and just talk about some of the perks on each side that I think are really well designed, and I'll go over the design philosophies that I think make those perks really good. And then I'm going to go over a build for each side, and, we'll just see how this goes. Now, before I go into it, I wanted to let you know I do have some kind of icons that are different than what you might be used to seeing. There's an app out called Nightlight, and you can download to do killer and survivor portraits and item and add-on and offering and perk skin changes. So I do have that. They're set up in the style of Hades, which is a game that I absolutely love, so that's why it's going to look different to you. So let's go ahead and start with the killer perks that I wanted to talk about. So the first perk that I want to talk about is Coup de Grace. And for Coup de Grace, the reason that I think that it's a really good design philosophy is that it gives a catch-up mechanic that is not overly oppressive. So kind of when I think about comeback mechanics, kind of the one that is going to jump to everybody's mind is NOED, Hex, No One Escapes Death. And NOED is a catch-up mechanic where you can, by all accounts, lose the game, but you can still be rewarded by getting, an extra kill that you might not have gotten normally. But I don't even think that NOED is that good. Like, you can get a surprise down, and you may be able to get a hook. Maybe that hook even leads to a death, but it very rarely leads to much more than that. And you're dedicating a whole perk slot to it. You may not even be able to get any value from it in the first place. If you kill survivors before the last generator is done, it does nothing. If they cleanse all of the totems, which I understand is not necessarily common, but it certainly can and has happened in many of my games on both sides. If the survivors find the Hex totem, which is now easier because NOED has its aura revealed, if they organize well, if you're playing an M2 killer, like there are many reasons why NOED isn't all that great. It's oftentimes going to be better than Coup, but I think that Coup is a better design. So it doesn't present a feel bad in the same way that NOED does for the survivors, and NOED can honestly provide a pretty feel bad for the killers too if they've cleansed all of your totems, or if they cleanse your totem before you get any real value out of it. NOED can absolutely feel miserable to run. But Coup is going to give you consistent value, but it's not overly oppressive. You just get a further lunge. It's something that you can hide. If you're playing somebody like Pig or Nemesis or Demo, there's lots of examples of killers that you can play where you kind of hide the fact that you have Coup. Even if you're playing an M1 killer, you can just not lunge. You can just tap your M1 or whatever your basic attack button is on controller. Tap that, and it won't consume any of your tokens, and you can save them for when you really need them. So Coup is a good design because it gives you that catch-up mechanic where you're falling behind because gens are being completed, and you're able to extract value out of it. But you're always going to be able to extract that value so long as any generator throughout the entire game gets done. NOED only gives you value maybe if all of the generators are done. So I think that Coup, gives you that extra ability to kind of get extra health states that you may not have normally gotten due to this extra lunge consistently throughout the game, but isn't overly oppressive for the other side by any means. And I think that that makes for a really good design of a perk. Now, Devour Hope is actually my favorite killer perk in the game. Let me move my camera so that you can see the full description. So, Devour Hope, I think, is a phenomenal design of a killer perk. And if Subtle were here, he would disagree with me, but, you know, screw it. I'm here by myself, so we're going to go with it. I think that Devour Hope is like Noed, except you can get value throughout the entire game. The ceiling for the value you can get is incredibly high, but you have to earn it. With Noed, you earn it by having the survivors do their objectives, by completing what they're supposed to do, by most accounts losing the game, then you get Noed value. For Devour Hope, you have to actually engage in chases, you have to get downs, you have to get the hooks, and you have to be, 24 meters or further away. Now, the fact that you're 24 meters or further away means that you're not camping. Some killers can proxy camp at 24 meters. I think Huntress, I think kind of Trickster, maybe Plague, they can kind of proxy camp, but they're not going to be able to camp the hook, which anytime that I play Devour, pretty much anytime I play period, but especially when I run Devour, I will absolutely use that as further incentive to not camp ever. Because the upside, the ceiling for getting Devour Hope online is so incredibly high. So you have to engage in chases, you have to get downs, you have to get hooks, and you have to have your totem not be cleansed. So and you have to not camp. So the cost is high, but being able to instant down and being able to just outright kill survivors in your game is such high upside that I think that the cost to benefit ratio is just in the sweet spot. If the costs were too much higher, or if the benefit was any higher, really, I would think that the perk would be out of balance in one way or another. But I really do like where Devour Hope is, and I think that it's a really good design. I think that it's a proper cost to benefit ratio, and I really like it. Similarly, not entirely the same, but similarly, let me again move my camera. We have No Way Out. So, with Devour, I was talking about how it rewards you for not camping because you have to be 24 meters or further away. Now, No Way Out is going to benefit you for not tunneling because you're spreading out your hook states. You are only getting benefit if you hook multiple survivors. There are several examples where I've been playing as survivor and a killer's been running No Way Out and they've just tunneled, and at the end of the game we touch the exit gate and it's only for 24 seconds because they've only hooked one person. Now, to get proper value out of this, you want to spread your hook states to different survivors, which means not tunneling. So for Devour, you have not camping, and for No Way Out, you have no tunneling. So it's through perks incentivizing a particular playstyle, or I guess disincentivizing negative playstyles that the devs don't want because it's unfun for the survivor side. So basically, the design of these perks is to give you benefit to positively reinforce not playing in a particularly unfun way. Instead of No Way Out, I could have put Grim Embrace here. I think that Grim Embrace is another example of a perk that perfectly encapsulates this spreading out of the hook states kind of play style. Barbecue and Chili, prior to its change of removing the blood point bonus, would have worked here as well. But I think No Way Out has that same style of incentivizing spreading of hooks, but is a stronger perk than the two of those. Or again, since they removed the blood point gain for barbecue, really just Grim Embrace. So I think No Way Out is a really good design because again, you're being incentivized to play play style that the dev and that the community wants. So that's great. And then Shattered Hope, I think, is the last killer perk that I want to go over, where I think that it's good design because it introduced a direct counter to the boon style that was added to the game with Michaela. So when boons got added, the only way that killers had of dealing with boons was to go and stamp them, but then the survivor could just replace the boon. With Shattered Hope, it is a permanent removal because it breaks the totem, and you get benefit for it. So it is a direct counter to something that was introduced that didn't have a counter prior to it, and gives you upside. So it is situational. There are going to be tons and tons and tons of games where you can run Shattered Hope and there will be no boon perks run, but when you run it and when you get value for it, it is very strong value. You get to permanently remove the totem, so they have to go and find another totem, then they have to reboon it, and then if you kick that one, they have to move on to the next one. And if you run something like Pentimento, then you can reset up these broken totems for Pentimento value. You can kick their boon, break the totem, immediately relight it for Pentimento, and get 30% regression on generators. So, and that's nothing to say about the aura reveal that you get as well with Shattered Hope. I think that it's a really well-designed perk, and one that I'm very happy that they added. Again, it's narrow. You're not gonna get value out of it every game, but when you do, I think that it's very strong, and you can gain a lot of benefit out of it. So let's go ahead and move over to the survivor perks. All right. Let me go ahead and move my camera back over. So the first survivor perk that I want to talk about is For the People. So I think that For the People is a well-designed perk because you are paying a cost for a benefit. And I'm not just talking about you're losing a health state as a cost for the benefit of giving a health state to somebody else. What I'm talking about is you have the opportunity cost of having For the People on instead of another perk, and you are paying the cost of being broken for 60 seconds in exchange for the option to have that heal be immediate. So if the killer is off pressuring another survivor or is pressuring a generator, then you can just heal the person normally. You can take them from the dying state to injured, or from injured to healthy, and that will be a normal time with no kind of cost other than the time. But if you choose to, you can have that heal be immediate for the cost of being broken. And so there's a very clearly defined cost to benefit ratio that I think is very well balanced, and I think that makes it a good design. So you have these costs. You have the fact that you have to dedicate a perk slot to it. You have the cost of needing to be healthy and losing that health state, and the cost of being broken for the immediate healing of a health state on another survivor, which you can use if the survivor is dead or in the dying state and maybe is going to be dead on hook, to prevent them from being killed and removed from the match. You can use that to make sure that they you know, are able to escape through the exit gate toward the end of the game if they're, you know, downed at the exit gate right before they're able to make it out or something like that. You can, you know, get somebody off of the hook and immediately heal them to make sure that they aren't getting tunneled out. There's lots of utilitarian benefits for the people, but it has a clearly defined cost to it, and I think that that's really good. It's something that you have to consider and weigh in order to use properly. And you know, a very slight benefit to that is if you do this, then you're the obsession, and if you escape, then you get extra blood points. So you get a little minor benefit for that as well because the cost is so high. But I think that it's a very well designed perk. I think that the clearly defined costs and benefits make it a really good perk. The next one I want to talk about is parental guidance. This is a perk similar in a way to Devour Hope on the killer side, where you have to earn it. The benefit is going to be very high. You can just straight up win a chase by removing your scratch marks and removing your grunts of pain and pools of blood. Like, you completely are able to disappear when using parental guidance, but you have to earn it. You have to get the pallet stun, or a flashlight save, or you know, a head-on stun, something like that. But you're able to just disappear. So you can just win a chase outright if you play it correctly. But there's counterplay on the killer side too. You know, if you're playing against a huntress, you're going to be less likely to be able to get a pallet stun in the first place. You know, if you're playing against a trickster, they're able to stay away from the pallet, or a death slinger, any kind of ranged killer. Even if you're playing an M1 killer, you can bait pallet throws. People do it all the time. And then if you bait the pallet throw, then the survivor isn't going to get this parental guidance value out of it. So there's counterplay for the killer, but when you earn that stun, you know, most commonly it's going to be a pallet, but it can be other ways. If you earn that, then you get the huge benefit of being able to outright win a chase. And if you're injured, removing your scratch marks and your pools of blood and your grunts of pain means that you can just disappear. You can be gone. And if you run smash hit with that, you're able to be completely gone. You can be on the other side of the map before your grunts of pain and scratch marks come back. So I think that the fact that you have to earn the benefit similar to Devour, and don't get me wrong, the cost for Devour and the benefit for Devour is much higher than for parental guidance, but parental guidance can easily win, you know, a chase and potentially allow you and your team to win the game. And I think that makes it a very strong design and you know, a good perk. One that I've run multiple times when I run like a head-on build, for example. The next perk that I want to talk about is Quick and Quiet. Let me move my camera back over here. Perfect. So the reason why I think that Quick and Quiet is a well-designed perk is the fact that the benefit that you get is not overly oppressive. Like, you know, you can definitely mix up the killer by, you know, doing a fast vault or, you know, a rushed action of getting into a locker, something like that. You can do that without giving the killer the information, and that can really give you some extra distance, but it's not overly oppressive. And I think the real key here is that it has a 20-second cooldown. So for a mid-level effect, I think having, you know, a lower cooldown is really helpful. Comparing this to Dance With Me, where if we pull that up, it has a similar-ish effect where you are able to deny the killer some information, but it's got a 40-second cooldown. Here's Dance With Me. Removing your scratch marks for 3 seconds can be helpful. Dance with Me is a perk that I have run several times with Quick and Quiet, for example, and live. But the fact that its cooldown is 40 seconds, I think that the cost of the cooldown is just too high compared to the benefit that you get. Contrasted with Quick and Quiet, where the benefit, I think, is, roughly equivalent, but the cooldown is half as long. And I think that is a proper ratio of effect to kind of cost as compared with Dance With Me. And I think that makes this a well-designed perk. And for these mid-level effects, I think Quick and Quiet should kind of be the go-to metric for how they kind of balance these, costs or downsides to what the effect is. So I think that Quick and Quiet is well designed. The last perk that I want to talk about is We'll Make It. And similar to parental guidance, this is something that you have to earn. You have to play altruistically. You have to, play in a way that is helpful for your teammates. You have to earn something in order to get the benefit. And the benefit is very strong. In my games with Subtle, we've been running Circle of Healing, and getting those heals in 8 or 4 seconds, depending on if it's a single person or 2 people healing somebody within Circle of Healing, that goes so fast. And We'll Make It is, something that you have to earn, but the effect is very strong. Being able to heal somebody off of hook in 8 seconds immediately is very powerful. It can be a strong anti-tunnel tool. Obviously, if the killer is face camping, this doesn't really do much. But if they have much distance at all, even if they go back to hook, you can be fully healed and not really be at risk of getting hard tunneled, even if you're healing under hook. But I think what makes it even stronger than that is you don't have to heal under hook. The effect lasts for 90 seconds, so you and the unhooker who's running We'll Make It can run off to a corner or some other safe spot and heal in 8 seconds. Or, you can unhook and you can split up, and then the person running We'll Make It can go off and heal somebody else completely. In an endgame scenario, when the person comes off the hook, maybe they have adrenaline, so they come off of the hook and they're healthy, and then the person running We'll Make It can go off and heal another teammate, which may ensure a 4-out where that wouldn't have been possible before. We'll Make It is, a neutral perk. It's not tied to anybody. Anybody can get it without, prestiging any character or purchasing anybody. And I think that it's, kind of the generic go-to, and one that's run by a lot of new players. And, I think that it's for very good reason. Even as somebody who is enfranchised, who has all of the perks, We'll Make It is still a perk that I run, maybe not frequently, but I certainly do run it, and it's very strong. There's somebody that Subtle and I play with on the regular who runs We'll Make It, and to great effect. It's great. I think that it, again, really does a good job of balancing the cost of going out of your way to go and get the unhook with the effect of being able to heal in half the time on multiple people for a very long period of time. So I think it's great. So that's going to be it for going over the perks that I wanted to talk about as far as good design. Now I wanted to go over a couple builds that, I've run in the past that I kind of wanted to talk about, and I think that they're pretty fun. So let me move my camera once again. So this is a build that I started running when the Tools of Torment chapter came out. I wanted to try and get some value out of Blood Rush. And I think that in order to really do that, the perk that I kind of went to kind of guarantee the Blood Rush activation is Renewal. And I think Renewal is really important for being able to get Blood Rush to activate because it's totally passive healing. You can use inner healing for this. You could use a syringe, I suppose. But I think renewal is going to be kind of the best option. So with an inner healing, you have to come off of the hook and already have, in order to get the heal quickly, you have to have already broken a totem and not used up that charge prior to getting hooked on your last hook. And then you go and hop in a locker and wait for it to heal up, and then you can get the benefit. Now, I will say that inner healing does have synergy with quick and quiet and head on, so I don't think that that's a bad option. But I do think that in general, renewal is the way that you want to go about getting Blood Rush to actually activate properly. You can do it if you get unhooked and you immediately get in chase. It's completely passive. All you have to have done is heal somebody between your first and second hook, and then this will passively heal you for a health state, which will allow you to activate Blood Rush. Now, the other two perks that you run are completely optional. Unquestionably, the strongest option is going to be Sprint Burst, but I wanted to have some more fun with it, so I'm running Head On and Quick and Quiet. So with Head On and Blood Rush, you can passively heal up from your renewal. You can hop in a locker with Quick and Quiet. You can head on the killer. Then you can, after you stun them, you can Blood Rush to regain your exhaustion. You can run to another tile, hop in a locker again with Quick and Quiet, wait for it to be prepped, and then you can head on them again. It's not good by any means, but I think it's fun. If you want to play a better build, you would want to run Sprint Burst and maybe you could do Vigil. That will get rid of your broken sooner. It won't heal you any faster, I learned, but it will get rid of your exhaustion earlier, so you can get more Sprint Burst value consistently throughout the match. You could run a utility perk like Reassurance, which I have been running more and more lately and have been getting great value out of. Move my camera again. We're just doing all of this live. Don't worry about it. Reassurance has been great lately. And, something that you can draw value out of throughout the entirety of the match. It will give your team flexibility for staying on generators longer while somebody is on hook. You can kind of coordinate when somebody is going to go in for the save or pop their deliverance based off of where the killer is. It gives you a larger time window for that. You could run Will Make It like we talked about before. Basically any kind of utility perk if you wanted to run Sprint Burst, and that would be a much better build, but I wanted to play for fun, so I was running Head On and Quick and Quiet. And with that, augmenting it, running a flashlight just for more flashlight blinds. You can blind them at pallets. You can blind them at vaults if they vault through a window. You can blind them after a head on if you're feeling particularly bad manner. But this is just a build for fun. The core, though, is, and what I really wanted to talk about is Blood Rush and how to get that activated, regardless of what exhaustion perk you run. And I think Renewal is the best way of doing that. I ran, a Renewal Blood Rush build for quite a while after the update happened, and I found that this has been the best way. I, again, would not be opposed to the idea of inner healing. Syringe is another option for the med kit, but then you can't run a flashlight for utility or for, flashlight saves or for being bad manner, which is very important. So I would lean against a med kit or a syringe in general for this build. Renewal should do you fine. And yeah, I mostly wanted to talk about that interaction of Blood Rush and Renewal. So this is one that you can try out. It is a build that is better with Survive with Friends because you're able to direct your teammates to lockers where you may be able to head-on stun. Head-on is more than just a bad mana perk. You can use it to give your teammates distance if they're in chase. If they down at a locker, you can be there for a head-on save. I've gotten that multiple times. So yeah, I think that it's pretty solid. I will say that if you do choose for a syringe instead of Renewal, you could also run Parental Guidance like I was talking about before. That does work with head-on. So you could head on. So let's say that you get healed by a teammate. No, let's say that you don't get healed by a teammate. You can syringe. You can quick and quiet into a locker and head on. And then you can head on stun. And then Parental Guidance out so that you lose any kind of scratch marks and anything like that. You can Blood Rush, which will hide your Grunts of Pain and your pools of blood from Parental Guidance, and then regain your exhaustion, circle to another locker, and have your head-on ready again in order to stun the killer. And that's a perfectly reasonable play that or line that you can do if you run a syringe instead of Renewal for your healing, running Parental Guidance. So that was a build that I wanted to talk about. Again, this core is just Renewal and Blood Rush, but it is a build that I have had some success with. The killer build that I wanted to talk about is for the pig. So we're running Deadlock. This can be substituted for whatever slowdown perk you want to run. I think that the passive slowdown from Deadlock is going to be more beneficial than something like Pop Goes the Weasel. Pain Res is reasonable here as well. You know, you can run something like Overcharge or Call of Brine or Eruption, but I really do think that passive slowdown is going to be better in this slot as opposed to something that you have to actively go and kick. Pig doesn't have much mobility, and when I talk about a couple of the other perks, you'll see why that lack of mobility is like extra hindered and why we are going to be more benefited for running something that's passive. But this doesn't have to be Deadlock. This can be any kind of passive slowdown. I'm going to jump forward to save the best for last. So Pig is similar to Demo, where she can injure survivors without losing stacks with her M2, with her ambush. And we're going to be able to utilize that on our Obsession to prevent ourselves from losing stacks. But we're going to be able to, with our other two perks, hopefully get the drop on survivors in order to get up hits or even grabs without alerting them and being able to build up stacks very quickly. So the key to this build is going to be Monitor and Abuse with Whispers. And we'll look at Monitor and then I'll move the camera for Whispers because I know I'm covering it. So with Monitor on Pig, we're able to get a unique interaction along with Whispers. So Pig normally has a 32 meter tear radius. I'm covering it up. We're gonna get this all figured out, folks. She has a 32 meter tear radius, but with Monitor, when you're not in chase, it goes down to 24. So our tear radius is 24 meters, but our Whispers radius is 32. So what we're able to do is we're able to approach a generator and Whispers will go off when we're within 32 meters. So there's an 8 meter range where we know a survivor is within our range, but they haven't heard our terror radius yet. So And that difference is because of monitors. So when we hear or when we see whispers go on, we can crouch to remove our terror radius, and our terror radius actually removes at the same rate as we move while crouching, actually a little faster. So if we fully approach the survivor, they will never hear our terror radius because it will go away within that 8 meters, so that by the time that we're up there, we'll be completely, they will have never heard our terror radius. And then we can stand up and get a grab potentially. We can stand up and get a hit to get a stack for save the best for last, or we can just go straight into an ambush if it's our obsession and not lose any stacks. So that interaction between whispers and monitor will really allow us to get the drop on survivors and get some stacks that are pretty free, or even a grab to completely bypass a health state. And I think that this playstyle is really fun and a unique way of playing Pig that a lot of other killers don't have the ability to do because of the fact that she can remove her terror radius. Ghostface can do something similar, but I like Ghostface when he's in his Night Shroud moves at the same speed as he does when he's not in Night Shroud, aside from when he's actively stalking. Pig is actively slowed down when she's crouched, so I think that she gains unique benefit out of this in a way that Ghostface even can't. Now, as far as add-ons go, you really have two options as far as I am concerned. So one of them is to be completely not focused on traps throughout the game, in which case we can use our videotape add-on to have the traps on them at the start. This will give us initial slowdown. The downside to running this is that the survivors will immediately know that we're a pig, and will know that they don't have to worry about traps at all throughout the rest of the match. So it's not free. Survivors can tell that we're a pig from the start if they spawn near a jigsaw box, or if they move to one on their way to the generator or something like that. So the fact that this lets them know that they're up against a pig isn't the biggest deal, but I do think that the fact that they now know that they don't have to worry about reverse bear traps throughout the rest of the match is kind of a big deal. To augment that, the downside of Amanda's letter is completely moot, since all of our traps were being used at the start, and then we just get the immediate aura effect basically for free. Now, because we're running whispers with monitor, the aura is not super important, but the downside of Amanda's letter is negligible, and honestly, the auras can be beneficial, especially if they're not immediately at the generator, being able to tell where exactly the survivor is, whereas whispers just gives you a vague sense of where they may be. Knowing exactly where they are can be very beneficial. But the other way that you can kind of go is to completely bypass this and lean more into the bear traps. Since we're going to be a chase focused build where we're trying to get downs as quickly as possible, leaning more into the reverse bear traps is totally reasonable. And you can go with a double gears setup, where not only are you pressuring them by, threatening grabs constantly, by getting in chase, by, having multiple stacks of save the best for last, but you're also pressuring them with the slowdown of removing the bear traps, which reduces their ability to effectively complete generators without putting your teammate or their teammates on a timer. But then your placing of the traps is faster, and more notably, removing the bear traps is going to take even longer. So you're just stacking multiple slowdowns on top of each other, which is augmented by the pressure that you're adding by the whispers, monitor interaction, and save the best for last. So I think that you can go two different directions. You can completely bypass using the reverse bear traps throughout the match, or you can lean into them heavily. You do have the option as well of increasing your movement speed while crouched, or you know, getting extra benefit from your crouching and uncrouching or your ambush attacks. But I think that either leaning heavily into the reverse bear traps or going with the Amanda's letter and videotape route is probably going to be the strongest way to go. And that's it. So, you know, let me know what you think. Let me know what your thoughts are on the perks that I talked about on the builds. What are some design choices that you really like in perks? What are some design choices that you really like for add-ons or for killer powers? You know, who do you think is the best designed killer? You know, let us know in the comments down below. I'm really interested to hear what people think about it. You know, speaking of which, if you want to subscribe to the channel, it costs you nothing, but it would really help us grow. You can follow me at twitter.com/ScrapBrainSE2, Twitch at twitch.tv/ScrapBrainSE2. Subtle is taking this week off, like I mentioned, but you can follow him on Twitch, Twitter, and TikTok, all at ZSubtle. And yeah, just let us know if there's any ideas that you have on episodes that you would like, what your thoughts on this episode are. I hope that the solo experience was not too disheartening for anybody, but Subtle should be back next week. Just needed a little break for him. So everybody, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a fantastic week, and I'll see you all later. Bye.